Welcome to Deep Dive Podcast, episode number 6. Okay, so think about it. From that, essential morning jolt to maybe pushing through a late night project, energy drinks, they're everywhere, right? They've kind of woven themselves into our daily routines. They promise that immediate surge, laser focus, feeling like you can conquer anything. But have you ever really stopped to think about what's actually going on inside your body when you pop that tab? Our mission today in this deep dive is to, peel back the layers. Let's uncover the real impacts of energy drinks moving way beyond just that feeling of energy. We've pulled together a whole stack of sources from health articles, research studies, expert analyses, basically trying to give you the most complete picture.
That's right. And while people grab them for a quick boost all the time, our sources show it's a much more complicated picture than most people think. There are those immediate effects, sure, the ones you notice, but there's also this whole cascade of physiological stuff happening and potential long-term things that are really important for you to understand.
Okay, so let's start there. Why are they so appealing? People grab them for a reason. What's the promise? And what do our sources say they actually deliver, at least, for a bit?
Well, the sources do confirm they deliver on some things, like boosting brain function. Studies show improvements in mental alertness, concentration, even things like reaction time and memory. There was one specific finding, actually, that was pretty striking. It showed about a 24% boost in concentration and memory after just one standard can of Red Bull. That's 8.4 ounces or 250 milliliters.
Wait, 24% from just one can? That's actually quite a bit. So it's not just feeling more awake, it's measurable.
That's what the research suggests, yeah. It's not just in your head. It's a quantifiable, though definitely temporary, shift. And beyond that brain boost, they're obviously used a lot to fight fatigue. Our sources talk about how they help people function when they're tired or haven't slept enough. Think long-haul drivers trying to stay focused, or maybe night shift workers needing to stay sharp. They do give that temporary ability to push through when your body's screaming for rest.
Okay, so we see the upside, that quick burst of focus, fighting off tiredness. But like anything potent, there's got to be a mechanism behind it, and usually a downside. So what are the sources telling us is really going on under the hood to make that happen? And where does that benefit start to, cost you?
Well, what's interesting is that it's way more than just caffeine, although caffeine is obviously a huge part of it. Beyond that initial kind of high, our sources show there are some pretty significant physiological impacts unfolding.
Okay, so you take a sip. What happens right away, physiologically? How fast does it hit, and what's creating that jolt?
Right, so within about 10, maybe 15 minutes, the caffeine starts getting into your bloodstream. It peaks around the 45-minute mark. That's usually when you feel most alert. What's happening is caffeine blocks adenosine. That's a chemical in your brain that makes you feel tired. But even as that's happening, sources point out your heart activity and blood pressure are already being affected. And this quick onset often leads straight into what the sources call the energy spike and slump. That alertness, it can just vanish, sometimes within an hour, leaving you feeling even more tired than before. And here's something else that takes a surprisingly long time for caffeine to fully leave your system. We're talking anywhere from 6 to 12 hours.
6 to 12 hours, wow.
Yeah, so that afternoon energy drink could easily mess with your sleep later on.
Okay, that spike and crash sounds maybe manageable, but our sources really seem to flag one area as a major concern, and that's the heart.
Absolutely. Yeah, cardiac issues are probably the most serious worry here. Sources cite studies finding energy drinks don't just speed up your heart rate, they actually make the heart contract more forcefully.
More forcefully? What does that mean?
It means it's not just beating faster, it's like pumping harder with each beat. It's a specific kind of strain, which is particularly risky if you already have some kind of underlying heart condition. One study even found a sudden spike in something called QTc levels. That's a marker for irregular heartbeats, even with just moderate consumption. So abnormal heart rhythms are a real documented risk.
And are these changes just like a quick blip or something more serious with lasting effects?
The sources are pretty clear. These aren't just tiny temporary things. Drinking, say, 32 fluid ounces, that's roughly 2 large cans within an hour, can actually change your heart rhythm and contribute to high blood pressure, hypertension. Caffeine itself, remember, is a vasoconstrictor.
Meaning it tightens blood vessels.
Exactly. It narrows them, which bumps up blood pressure temporarily, even in healthy adults. Now, if you already have high blood pressure, this effect seriously increases your stroke risk. And the most alarming thing, the potential for cardiac arrest, especially, like I said, for people with existing heart conditions. For them, even just a few drinks could be lethal. The numbers kind of back this up too. Over 20,000 emergency room visits in the U.S. each year are linked to energy drink use.
20,000 ER visits. Wow. That really drives home how serious these heart issues can be. It's a huge reminder why knowing your own, caffeine sensitivity and your overall health is just crucial before grabbing one of these.
Definitely. And beyond the heart, another really big factor, often kind of overlooked, is the sheer amount of sugar in many of these drinks.
Right. And the numbers are, well, they're pretty shocking when you look closely.
They really are. I mean, imagine stirring 7 packets of sugar into your coffee. That's roughly what's in a standard can of Red Bull.
7.
Yeah. And a bigger 16-ounce can of Monster, you're looking at maybe 14 teaspoons of sugar, all at once. This massive sugar hit directly impacts your blood glucose levels. It makes things worse if you have diabetes, and it seriously increases the risk of type 2 diabetes for people who don't. Sources also link this high sugar load to more inflammation and oxidative stress in the body. Those are kind of silent triggers for chronic diseases down the line. And, well, it's no surprise all that added sugar means extra calories, which contributes to weight gain and obesity, another big risk factor for type 2 diabetes.
Okay, but what about the sugar-free ones? Lots of people go for those thinking they're dodging the bullet completely. What do the sources say?
Yeah, that's a good point. Sugar-free options are definitely better if you're trying to manage blood sugar, no question. However, the sources do note that the artificial sweeteners used might bring their own potential cardiovascular risks. So it's not necessarily a completely free pass. It's more of a trade-off.
Okay, so we've covered the heart, the sugar. Let's shift gears to the mental side. Beyond that initial jolt, what's the impact on our mind, our mood?
That's a really important angle, too. For people who drink them often, headaches and even migraines are common caffeine withdrawal symptoms. Plus, that mix of strong stimulants and often high sugar can trigger anxiety, jitters, just general nervousness. That can actually make it harder to concentrate or handle your emotions properly. There was one study, quite telling, that found Rockstar Energy Drink significantly ramped up stress hormones like norepinephrine. It spiked by like 74% in the group drinking it, compared to only 31% in the placebo group.
Wow, 74%. So it's not just feeling wired, it's a measurable physiological stress response hitting your system hard.
Exactly. It's a physical stress reaction. And this can sometimes snowball into more serious mental health issues. Our sources talk about concerning links to increased aggression, big mood swings, even making depressive symptoms worse. This seems particularly true in vulnerable groups like teens and service members.
So the quick fix could actually make things worse mentally for some people.
It suggests that, yes, in some cases, it might deepen existing challenges or even trigger new ones. And then there's the obvious one, sleep. All that caffeine and sugar makes it incredibly hard to fall asleep and stay asleep, messing up your sleep patterns. And poor sleep, as we know, just undermines overall health in so many ways. Another really critical area the sources bring up is how energy drinks interact with other things, especially when mixed or just when you drink way too much.
Right, and the big one everyone thinks of is mixing them with alcohol. It seems almost like a ritual for some people, but the sources paint a really worrying picture, don't they?
They really do. Mixing energy drinks and alcohol is seen as a major public health concern. What happens is the stimulant effect of the energy drink can mask how drunk you actually feel from the alcohol. You feel less intoxicated, but you're still just as impaired.
Oh, that sounds dangerous.
It is. It often leads people to drink more than they normally would, increases the chances of drunk driving, and results in more alcohol-related injuries. One study showed almost a 6 times higher risk of heart palpitations when you mix the two. Actually, the FDA forced companies back in 2010 to stop selling those pre-mixed alcoholic energy drinks because there were so many reports of problems, even deaths. But, people still mix them themselves.
That's a really stark warning. And it's not just alcohol, right? What about prescription meds? Any interactions there?
Exactly. Sources mention that stuff in energy drinks can interfere with certain medications. They specifically call out some depression medications. So, yeah, if you're on any prescription drugs, it's definitely smart to check with your doctor or pharmacist about potential issues. Another risk, maybe less known, is niacin overdose. Vitamin B3, or niacin, is often added. If you drink a lot of them, especially if you're also taking niacin supplements, you could actually overdose. Symptoms can be things like skin flushing, feeling dizzy, vomiting, itching, even a faster heart rate. There's actually a case study linking heavy energy drink use to a specific type of liver damage, non-viral hepatitis caused by B3 toxicity.
Liver damage. Wow. Okay. And what about something simpler like dehydration? How does that play into it?
Yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive for a drink, right? But caffeine is a diuretic. It makes you pee more. Combine that with the sodium often found in these drinks, and if you're not drinking enough plain water alongside them, you can actually get dehydrated. It messes with your body's sodium-water balance and can pull water out of your cells.
Okay, so after all that, what does this mean for you, the listener? Who really needs to steer clear, and what's the general advice for healthy adults?
Well, our sources are super clear about certain groups. For kids and teenagers, the American Academy of Pediatrics says flat out, they should not drink energy drinks. Period.
Not at all.
Not at all. The reasoning is sound. Their developing bodies have a much higher risk of caffeine addiction, plus the negative effects on their growing hearts and brains are a real concern. Experts even give caffeine limits. No more than 100 milligrams a day for teens. For younger kids, it's way less, like under 1.12 milligrams per pound of body weight.
Yeah.
So for a 75-pound kid, that's only about 85 milligrams.
And one could easily blow past that limit.
Easily. Some cans have 200 milligrams, even more. So yeah, the recommendation is total avoidance for kids and teens.
Okay, that's very clear. What about pregnant or nursing women?
Same advice. Avoid them completely. Now, for generally healthy adults, the advice is basically caution and moderation. An occasional one might be okay, but daily use is really discouraged. The general guideline seems to be no more than about 16 ounces. That's one large can or two small ones per day. And, crucially, you need to factor in other caffeine sources too, like coffee or tea, to avoid going overboard on total caffeine. And definitely be careful with those little energy shots. Things like 5-hour energy pack, a huge punch, like 200 milligrams of caffeine in less than 2 ounces.
And it gets tricky, too, because sometimes the labels aren't even telling you the full caffeine story, right?
Exactly. That's a key point. Manufacturers aren't always required to list caffeine that comes from natural sources like guarana on the nutrition facts label. So the total amount of caffeine you're getting could actually be quite a bit higher than what's listed. It makes it even harder to track your intake accurately.
Right. So if you are looking for that energy boost, but you want to avoid all these potential problems, what are some healthier, more sustainable alternatives the sources suggest?
Yeah, there's some great options. Green tea is fantastic. It gives you a gentler caffeine lift plus antioxidants. Ginger tea can be really invigorating too and has its own health benefits. Coffee, in moderation is often seen as better than energy drinks because you generally know what you're getting caffeine-wise. And it doesn't have all the extra sugar and weird stimulants.
Mm-hmm.
And things like freshly pressed juice can give you natural energy from sugars, plus vitamins and electrolytes. The main idea is to find these healthier options and make them your go-to before you potentially run into issues with energy drinks. And finally, maybe most importantly, you just have to listen to your body. If you drink an energy drink and notice symptoms like your heart racing, feeling weirdly anxious, nauseous, or you're vomiting, stop drinking them immediately. If those symptoms hang around or get worse, or if you know you have underlying health issues, definitely talk to your doctor. Get proper advice and treatment tailored to you. Your health comes first.
That's really solid advice, and it circles back to reading labels, understanding what you're putting in your body, and just being an informed consumer, making choices based on actual knowledge. So let's wrap up this deep dive. Energy drinks, yeah, they offer that temporary buzz, that feeling of focus. Our sources show they can deliver that for a short time. But the research we've looked at reveals this whole other side, a pretty wide range of significant health risks. We're talking serious worries for your heart, your mental well-being, and your metabolic health overall.
That sums it up well. Occasional moderate use might be okay for some healthy adults. But for many others, especially kids, teens, pregnant women, the experts strongly advise complete avoidance. Really, the knowledge we've gone through today is about seeing the full picture, the good and the bad, and then using that to make smart choices for your own health now and in the future.
So here's a final thought to maybe chew on. Given what we've uncovered about how these drinks work, what other quick fixes in your life might be worth a deeper look? Might they have hidden costs or maybe even unexpected benefits? Definitely something to consider. We really hope you take what you've learned today and think about it as you make your choices. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.